Hi, everyone. Meteorologist Bill Rentschler in the 1011 Hour Streaming Studio. Hope everyone's having a nice Thursday morning. Daily forecast update here from the streaming studio. And thankfully, things I think should be pretty quiet today, so I don't think a whole lot to talk about here over the next few minutes. But we do have a couple things to start off with because it is Thursday, and that means we had the latest drought monitor that was released early this morning, and it does show, unfortunately, some changes, and unfortunately, things kind of trending in a little bit of the wrong direction for us. So this is a look at the drought monitor that we had last week, and again, you could see last week we had some expansion in the abnormally dry conditions across not only southeastern Nebraska, but continued across the southwestern, western parts of the state. And if we look at the most recent drought monitor released this morning, again, unfortunately, we continue to see things kind of just get a little bit worse. Again, incrementally, but we did have some expansion of moderate drought into parts of southeastern Nebraska, and we continue to see some of those abnormally dry conditions expand as well across the southern portions of the state. If we look at the actual just change maps, again, a little bit easier to tell kind of where things got worse. We had one class of degradation is what we'd call it, or expansion of those drought conditions across the south-central, southeastern corner of the state, also across north-central Nebraska, where we now have some moderate drought up in Antelope County into parts of Holt County as well. We did have one class of improvement, though, across parts of the Panhandle and across parts of southwestern Nebraska. But again, things just kind of getting a little bit worse in some spots across the southeastern sections of the state with that expansion of that moderate drought conditions. So again, if you look at the drought time series, again, so this is the status of the drought in Nebraska over the course of the past year. Again, things are still, again, pretty good. Again, over half the state, 50.5% of the state currently under no drought conditions, but we do now have about a third of the state, a little bit more than a third of the state under abnormally dry conditions, just under 10% under that moderate drought, just about 4% under severe drought. And again, as far as the 10% moderate drought, again, you got to go back to late April, early May, sometime in there, the last time that number was that high or just a little bit higher. But again, things certainly have been worse over the course of the last year, so we're still doing okay. And again, obviously, we've seen some moisture here over the past couple days. Again, the cutoff for this drought monitor is 10 a.m. on Tuesday morning, so anything that fell after 10 a.m. This week on Tuesday, again, is not reflected in the drought monitor that was released this week. So again, there are some spots, particularly across the southeastern sections of the state, that have seen some decent moisture here over the last day or so, and that's not necessarily reflected in this drought monitor that was just released this morning. If we zoom out and look at a more nationwide view, again, still have about half the country that's dealing with some form of drought one way or another. Some of the problem areas, again, continue to be West Texas into parts of New Mexico. That spot in West Texas, kind of down near El Paso, that's under exceptional drought. That's really one of the only areas in the entire country that's under exceptional drought. There also is a spot there in western Montana, but again, pretty small coverage area with exceptional drought conditions across the United States, which is what we like to see. But again, West Texas there continues to be a little bit of a problem spot, and then kind of up again into the northern Rockies, western Montana, into parts of Idaho, there's some extreme and exceptional drought. Also, again, across the Appalachians, again, West Virginia, again, kind of over towards southern Ohio, dealing with some drought conditions, some moderate, or some severe, rather, that is, some severe to extreme drought conditions in those areas. But overall, again, things certainly have been much worse. If you look at the drought status, this is the same graphic we just looked at, but again, with the national data, again, just 0.2% of the entire United States, contiguous United States, under any exceptional drought. And again, about half the country, though, dealing with no drought conditions. But over the past several months, again, over the summer months, we have seen those abnormally dry conditions continue to grow, which, again, over the summer months, that's not something that we're entirely surprised by. But we did pick up a little bit of rain, again, last night into early this morning, as we did deal with some thunderstorms across the area. Again, not much here in the capital city, kind of like what we talked about yesterday. You know, there was the chance, but at the time, I was thinking that probably the best chances were going to be to our south and to our east, and that is kind of what we did see. Again, in Lincoln, officially at the airport, just 1/100th of an inch of precipitation over the course of the last 24 hours. Same in Beatrice. Falls City, though, did pick up right around an inch, and about 4/10 in Nebraska City, as well as in the Omaha area. And if we look at the sort of map of what happened last night. This is a look at all the warnings that we had issued and the storm reports. We did have one lone severe thunderstorm warning out in the Panhandle, but again, most of the activity that we had was just off to our south and to our east, kind of stretching from down near Beatrice through the Syracuse area, then over towards Nebraska City. That's where we saw at least one thunderstorm in particular produce a number of severe thunderstorm warnings. There was a report of a funnel cloud down near Blue Springs. There was that one tornado warning that was issued down across parts of Gage County. And again, we also had some heavy rain, and there were some flash flood warnings issued. We're up in the Omaha area across parts of Douglas and Sarpy counties last night. But again, that's kind of what we saw last night. There were some heavy thunderstorms. Certainly the worst of it, though, again, if you zoom out just a little bit, was down across parts of northeastern Kansas and over towards the Kansas City metro area. But again, things were fairly quiet here in the capital city. Did get a little bit of dark. Did get a little dark for a period of time, and again, we did at least have a little bit of moisture. But overall, things were fairly quiet for us, all things considered. So as we take a look at your weather headlines into the day on Thursday, again, dealing with some fog as we start our day today. We did have a dense fog advisory for parts of the state that was just allowed to expire here at 9 o'clock, but also going to be dealing with at least the chance, very low-end chance, probably 20%, 30% at best, maybe an isolated shower or thunderstorm across parts of the state today. And then again, we've talked about this the last couple days, but a real seasonal pattern kind of setting in as we head over the course of the next week. Some pretty typical mid to late August conditions over the next week to 10 days. So right now in the capital city, again, you can see from our Skyview camera, which again is about 300 feet up. Again, there is some reduced visibility, some of the low clouds and fog that we are dealing with this morning. Visibility at the airport is being reported at 1.5 miles. So again, take it slow if you head out early this morning. Again, just give yourself a little bit of extra time. 73 right now, the temperature at the airport, and here at the studios. See that dew point temperature is at 72. So again, relative humidity right now is very, very high. So a pretty thick start to our Thursday. If you look at visibility across the state, again, things have been improving over the course of the last hour or two. Right now, Lincoln and the Lincoln Airport's kind of the spot that has the poorest visibility. Also down to 2.5 miles in Hebron, 4 miles in York, 5 miles in Columbus. Again, we did have some spots that were down at 1 mile or less early this morning, but again, things have gradually improved. Will continue to gradually improve. In fact, again, if you look at the visible satellite imagery right now, again, we can see some of those areas of fog across the eastern sections of the state. Again, certainly not widespread by any means. Also dealing with, again, plenty of sunshine to start the day for much of central and western Nebraska. It's kind of the eastern half of the state. It's dealing with some of these areas of fog as well as some clouds. We'll also keep an eye on some showers and thunderstorms that we can kind of see there across the northern tier of the state that are trying to push into the area. Temperatures this morning, it's low 60s to low 70s across the state. Dew point numbers, again, are pretty high, especially for the eastern half of the state. Upper 60s, low 70s, like I already mentioned. It's pretty thick out there. Dew points a little bit more comfortable as you head across the western sections of the state. I really love this graphic, and I'm going to show it as much as I can. But again, dew point trend over the last 7 days. Versus what we're expecting over the next 7 days. Again, you can see muggy, humid conditions expected really for much of the next week as we, like I said, continue to kind of settle into that typical August pattern for us. Winds behind the little frontal boundary we had moved through yesterday, more out of the west or northwest at around 5 to 15 miles an hour. Wind shouldn't be too much of a problem for us today. Satellite and radar picture again showing variable cloudiness, especially for the eastern parts of the state. Some rain beginning to push into the parts of north central Nebraska. So again, folks up in the northern parts of the state, Ainsworth, O'Neill, Atkinson, maybe dealing with some showers and thunderstorms this morning. Not expecting anything really severe, but again, could see some additional rain in those areas as we head through the morning hours. We zoom out, look at a regional view. Overall things, again, fairly quiet for us. If we zoom out even further and look at a national view, the one feature I do want to point out is that we can now see Hurricane Ernesto appearing in our national satellite and radar picture. Again, it's well out into the Atlantic. Not going to threaten the eastern seaboard, but again, folks in Bermuda could potentially see this hurricane impact the island. as early as likely tomorrow morning. So again, that's something that we'll keep an eye on, but again, not going to threaten the eastern seaboard at all. So we check out Skycast as we head through the day today. Again, dealing with those potential showers and thunderstorms across the northern parts of the state. I think as we head into the afternoon, again, our in-house model picking up on the potential for some of those isolated to widely scattered showers and thunderstorms across central into eastern sections of the state. One or two of those could pulse up and be a little bit stronger. We do have a marginal risk today. So again, can't completely rule out maybe one or two of those storms producing some potentially large hail, maybe some 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts. So that is something we'll watch out for. But then as we head into the day on Friday, again, I think we're generally quiet. Again, there's a chance for a spotty shower in the southern sections of the state, but I think the better chances for any moisture on Friday will stay across our neighbors to the south, down in parts of Kansas. Towards Friday night, again, maybe a storm off the high country in the west, but otherwise most of the state should be dry and I think fairly quiet. And then those conditions basically persist as we head into the day on Saturday as well. I think mostly sunny skies and just an outside chance at any moisture impacting the state as we head through the day on Saturday. So, severe weather outlook for the day today. There is a marginal risk up in the New England area, so folks in Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, again, can't rule out a strong storm out there, but otherwise, again, the middle part of the country, especially from Chicago through St. Louis over to Kansas City, where we have that slight risk for severe weather, is probably going to be the main area of concern as we head through the day on Thursday for any potential active weather. Again, isolated to scattered strong to severe storms possible in those areas. Large hail, damaging winds, isolated tornadoes can't be ruled out. Into the day on Friday, again, we have a marginal risk for the extreme southwestern corner of the state, but otherwise shouldn't be dealing with much in the way of severe weather across Nebraska. Marginal risk stretching from the Great Lakes down through the Ohio River Valley, down towards Tennessee, and then kind of swinging back on over to the west across parts of southern Kansas, northern Oklahoma. And then on Saturday, no severe weather expected really across the Midwest, though we can't rule out, again, maybe an isolated rumble of thunder or two. 7-day precipitation potential looks like this, does not look like that, looks like that. Again, looks like over the course of the next week, chances for the heaviest rainfall are going to lie to our east across parts of Illinois, the Great Lakes, and then up in New England. They could see an inch or two of rain over the course of the next 7 days. Here at home in Nebraska, again, not much in the way of moisture expected. As we head over the next week, we're looking at maybe a quarter to a half an inch of moisture impacting the state over the next 7 days. So again, kind of setting up a little bit of a drier pattern for us, I think, over the next week or so. Certainly, looking at the forecast now, over the course of the next week, no widespread precipitation events look like they are on our horizon. As far as temperatures are concerned, highs today going to be pretty typical for mid-August, mid-upper 80s. Some low 90s can't be ruled out across the southern sections of the state. In Lincoln, we're going to say 88, and again, it will be humid, so likely feeling just a little bit warmer than this when we factor in those high dew points, especially for the eastern half of the state. Lows tonight falling mid-50s to mid-60s from west to east across the state. Again, pretty typical for this time of year. Friday afternoon temperatures, mid-upper 80s and low 90s again. In Lincoln, we're going to say right at 90 degrees for the day on Friday. Could see some lower to maybe even middle 90s in the far west. Into Saturday morning, again, it's low to mid 60s for most of the 10-11 coverage area, and then high temperatures in the afternoon. Most of central and eastern Nebraska, generally in the mid to upper 80s, but as you head across far western and southwestern Nebraska, we will be looking at the potential for some 90-degree temperatures to start the weekend on Saturday. National map forecast highs today. Again, you can see staying hot across much of the southern plains, 90s and triple digits. Again, cooler as you head across the northern plains into the Great Lakes, where we are expecting some of that moisture today, and then into the day on Friday. Again, kind of more of the same. 90s, triple digits, kind of impacting the middle and southern sections of the country. Certainly, again, going to stay hot across the desert southwest and Arizona and New Mexico. Into Saturday, again, more of the same. Those 90s stretching all the way potentially into parts of Wyoming and Montana. 100 degrees in Boise for the day on Saturday, and then on Sunday, that heat does kind of get shunted a little bit further to the south, but still looking at 90s and triple digits across much of Oklahoma, Texas, and into the southeast for the day on Sunday. 7-day forecast for Lincoln looks like this. Again, you can see typical mid-August pattern. Really nothing too exciting over the next week. Again, some outside chances for rain here and there. Otherwise, we'll look for those highs in the mid to upper 80s, lows in the low to middle 60s over the next week. 10-day forecast for cities across the state. And again, really nothing too exciting as we head over the next week to 10 days. Pretty typical pattern for us. We're looking at those highs in the middle to generally upper 80s for most locations as we head over the course of the next week to 10 days. So let's look at your forecast. Again, thanks everyone for tuning in and for joining. Really do appreciate it as always. Again, this is a segment that we try and do at least once every day. And again, right around 9 o'clock, again, just kind of diving in what's making headlines in the weather world, at least locally, regionally, and a look nationally. So again, tune in right around 9 o'clock every day, again, live on 1011 streaming platforms, online, as well as on our streaming apps, as well as on our YouTube channel as well. So appreciate everyone for tuning in and watching as always. Keep it tuned to 1011, both on air and online, for all of your latest news, weather, and sports. And until next time, hope everyone has a nice Thursday.